Russia, square kilometers, stretching across Eastern Europe and Northern Asia, from the icy Arctic Ocean in the north to the subtropical Black Sea in the south, encompassing a diverse array of climates, landscapes, and peoples. Its land mass is so vast that it spans 11 time zones and borders 16 countries, making it a geopolitical giant with an exceptional influence in both regional and global affairs. The country's terrain is incredibly varied, ranging from the endless tundra and forests of Siberia to the fertile plains surrounding the Volga River, to the Ural Mountains, which mark the natural division between Europe and Asia. Throughout history, Russia has been a land of paradoxes, marked by the tension between vast natural wealth, particularly in resources like oil, gas, timber, and minerals, and the socio-economic challenges of managing such an enormous expanse. With a population of over 140 million people, Russia is a multicultural and multi-ethnic nation, with hundreds of distinct ethnic groups and languages spoken across its regions. The largest group is the ethnic Russians, but there are significant populations of Tatars, Ukrainians, Bashkirs, Chuvash, and Chechens, among others, contributing to a complex social fabric shaped by centuries of migration, conquest, and integration. Russian culture has been profoundly shaped by its history, from the Kievan Rus to the rise of the Tsarist Empire, which became one of the world's most powerful and influential nations by the 19th century. The imperial era, especially under the Romanovs, left a legacy of opulence, art, and military strength, but it was also characterized by widespread inequality and the struggle of the peasantry. This tension between the elite and the working classes would be a defining feature of Russian history, culminating in the Russian Revolution of 1917, which ended the Tsarist autocracy and brought the Bolsheviks to power under the leadership of figures like Vladimir Lenin. This revolution led to the formation of the Soviet Union in 1922, a state based on communist principles that would dominate much of the 20th century. The USSR, under the leadership of Joseph Stalin, transformed Russia into a global superpower, though at an immense human cost, including widespread purges, forced collectivization, and the horrors of the Great Terror. The Soviet era was defined by its competition with the United States during the Cold War, as the two nations engaged in a struggle for global supremacy, which involved not only military and ideological battles but also the space race, nuclear arms development, and proxy wars across the world. Despite its military might, the Soviet Union faced significant economic and political challenges, and by the 1980s, under the leadership of Mikhail Gorbachev, the USSR began a process of reform through policies like perestroika, restructuring, and glasnost openness, which eventually led to the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. Following this, Russia emerged as an independent nation under the leadership of Boris Yeltsin, who oversaw a period of tumultuous change as the country transitioned from a centrally planned economy to a market-oriented one. This transition, however, was far from smooth, leading to widespread poverty, economic instability, and the rise of oligarchs who consolidated enormous wealth and political power. In the 2000s, Vladimir Putin, who initially served as president from 2000 to 2008 and later returned to power in 2012, became the central figure in Russian politics, gradually consolidating power in his hands and leading the country through a period of economic growth driven largely by oil and gas exports. Putin's governance has been characterized by an increasingly authoritarian approach, with significant limitations on political opposition, a crackdown on independent media, and the centralization of power in the Kremlin. Internationally, Putin's Russia has pursued a more assertive foreign policy, seeking to restore Russia's influence in its former Soviet sphere, particularly through actions in Ukraine, the annexation of Crimea in 2014, and support for separatist movements in eastern Ukraine. This has led to strained relations with the West, particularly the United States and the European Union, and has resulted in economic sanctions that have taken a toll on the Russian economy. Domestically, Russia faces numerous challenges, including a declining population due to low birth rates, high mortality rates, and an aging demographic. While the country boasts a rich cultural heritage, with globally recognized contributions to literature, music, dance, and the visual arts, there are significant socio-economic disparities between different regions, particularly between the more developed areas of European Russia and the underdeveloped regions of Siberia and the Far East. Additionally, Russia continues to grapple with issues of corruption, the rule of law, and political freedoms, with many dissidents and opposition leaders facing persecution or exile. The Russian Orthodox Church, which had been repressed during the Soviet era, has regained significant influence in recent years, often aligning itself with the state to promote a sense of national identity and conservative values. Russia's military power remains one of the largest in the world, with a vast nuclear arsenal and an extensive conventional military, but the country's economic structure is still heavily dependent on its energy exports, which makes it vulnerable to fluctuations in global oil and gas prices. The Russian economy, despite its natural resource wealth, faces the challenge of diversifying into other sectors like technology, manufacturing, and agriculture, which remain underdeveloped in comparison to other major economies. The country's vast size and remote regions present unique challenges in terms of governance, infrastructure, and public services, especially in areas such as healthcare and education, which are often of varying quality depending on geographic location. The Russian language, with its Cyrillic alphabet, is the most widely spoken in the country, but there are also numerous other languages spoken by various ethnic groups, reflecting the country's diverse population. Russian cuisine, which includes hearty dishes like borscht, pelmeni, and blini, is a reflection of the country's climate and agricultural resources, designed to provide sustenance in the harsh, cold winters. Vodka, a drink deeply embedded in Russian culture, is not just a beverage but also a symbol of Russian social life and history, often associated with gatherings and celebrations. Despite the challenges that Russia faces, it remains a significant global player with a rich cultural history, a complex political landscape, and a vast natural resource base that continues to influence its role in world affairs. While Russia's future remains uncertain, its strategic position, both geographically and politically, ensures that it will continue to be a key player in global politics for the foreseeable future. With its growing military presence, particularly in the Middle East, and its efforts to expand its sphere of influence, Russia's actions will likely continue to shape the geopolitical landscape for years to come. At the same time, the country's domestic challenges, including economic diversification, political reforms, and social equality, will need to be addressed to secure a more stable and prosperous future for its citizens. The Russian Federation's trajectory will remain one of global interest, as its past, present, and future are intertwined with the larger currents of world history and international relations. Countries, including Norway, Finland, Poland, China, and North Korea, and stretches over 11 time zones, from the shores of the Arctic Ocean in the north to the subtropical beaches of the Black Sea in the south. With a population exceeding 140 million, Russia is not only vast in terms of land area but also rich in historical, cultural, and political significance. The nation has played a pivotal role in shaping the course of world events, particularly in the 20th century, through its history as the core of the Soviet Union, which existed from 1922 until 1991. This historical backdrop provides a complex and fascinating narrative that intertwines with the nation's present-day identity, as Russia has undergone significant political and social changes since the dissolution of the Soviet Union, transitioning from a centrally planned economy to a more market-driven one, though it retains many remnants of its Soviet-era systems. Moscow, the capital, and St. Petersburg are Russia's most prominent cities, with the former serving as the political and economic center, while the latter, known for its cultural and architectural heritage, is often regarded as the artistic heart of the country. Russia is a nation of stark contrasts, from the frozen tundra of Siberia, home to vast natural resources such as oil, natural gas, and precious metals, to the lush, temperate regions surrounding the Volga River and the fertile plains that were once the breadbasket of the Soviet Union. The country's climate is as diverse as its geography, with subarctic and continental climates dominating much of Siberia, while the southern regions enjoy a more moderate climate conducive to agriculture. The history of Russia is marked by the rise and fall of powerful dynasties, most notably the Romanovs, whose reign from the early 17th century until the 1917 revolution encapsulated the grandeur and tragedy of the Russian Empire. The 1917 Bolshevik Revolution, led by figures like Vladimir Lenin, led to the creation of the Soviet Union, which, under Joseph Stalin's leadership, became one of the world's two superpowers, often in a tense Cold War rivalry with the United States. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 led to the emergence of the Russian Federation, which has since been shaped by both its imperial past and the legacy of communism. President Vladimir Putin, who has been in power for much of the 21st century, has been a controversial figure, consolidating power within the state, suppressing opposition, and focusing on regaining Russia's influence on the global stage. Economically, Russia relies heavily on its natural resource exports, particularly oil and gas, which are key drivers of the national economy, though it also faces challenges such as economic inequality, corruption, and the need for diversification into other industries. Russia's military is one of the largest in the world, with a powerful nuclear arsenal that remains a significant factor in global geopolitics. Despite its military